Hey folks, Crazy Climber 80 here again, and this time we're going to look at game number 2 in our From 1985 series, and this is one of the all-time classic space shoot-em-ups. This was released by Konami, and this is the very first game in the series, and it is called Gradius. This game was also called Nemesis in the US. It did not receive much release in the US, but players after the NES release especially really began to take notice. This was also released in the arcades as Versus Gradius on Nintendo cabinets. But this was created on what was called Bubble hardware, Konami's Bubble hardware. And it would often begin with this countdown before the game would actually start. And this introduced a number of standards for a lot of shoot 'em up games, the way that the game would, or the way that your ship could power up, especially, and the option fighters there that the ship has swirling around it was brand freaking new, as far as I know, and the power up system, which you see at the bottom, would have various weapons that would increase. Two of them could increase their power with repeated power-ups, and the rest you could just power up once. But in order to power up, you have to collect these capsules that certain enemies, or maybe a whole group of enemies, would drop. And once you collected that power-up, you had to activate it with one of the buttons. And there were 3 buttons. There was the power-up button, there was the fire button, in which you shoot either regular shots or lasers. And the lasers are super useful. Or you could use the 3rd button, which was missiles. And you had to use a button to fire missiles. And a number of Gradius series games later on did not require a button to use missiles, or you could just shoot them with your regular shots. That took me a while to get used to. And if you're used to using just your shot button to fire missiles at the same time you shoot your regular shots, well, you're going to kind of have trouble at the beginning like I did. Well, I played it through once, didn't record that because I was kind of frustrated, and then I tried it again after learning that you have to use a separate button for the missiles, and I did better. But yeah, this was mostly known, I guess, in the US as Nemesis until the NES port came along. The NES port was fantastic. The graphics were maybe a little bit simpler. Maybe the music was a little bit simpler than in the arcade. But I really have to give the arcade original some notice. But it plays very much similar to the version that we're really familiar with, which would be the NES or Versus one, mostly the NES ones. And now I have missiles and regular shot. But as soon as you can, try getting the laser, and note that there are some enemies that are orange or red. When you shoot those, they will usually give you one of the power-up capsules, and you need to collect it. I had to record this through Bandicam, and sometimes the frame rate isn't as good at times. And it was improved at some times, and maybe not so great at other times. So sorry if it looks kind of stupid. Yeah, notice that, yeah, the music is a little richer in the arcade original than like in the NES port, or maybe the Versus port. The Versus port was very similar to the NES port, but maybe a little bit more difficult, as the Versus games were wont to be compared to the NES version. I hope you have a great Christmas next week. there were a number of hidden tricks in the NES version that were not in the arcade original. You could go between little gaps in mountains and get bonus points. You can't do that in this one. For this part, I would suggest going to the upper right as much as you can and have an option and let it maybe take out some of those volcano rocks with your missiles or your shots. And this boss was in many sequels or follow-ups to Gradius in the Gradius series, and he's in this one, of course. Note that those groups of blue enemies, like the ones that we saw at the beginning, will give you a power-up capsule once you destroy them all. And now we have the familiar shield that you can collect from Gradius. And this is like two little rotating balls that appear in front of you and block enemy shots. Shots can still nail you from behind, and if one shot hits you, or if you run into the walls or solid objects, you are dead. And the shield will start to disappear as it gets shot at, or it runs into a wall or something. And we have little breakable purple blocks here. They do not regenerate as some of those do in video games. And now we're seeing our second boss coming up here in just a minute. First, I don't know where you can stand to be safe, but don't stay still whatever you do. There's going to be an enemy appearing right where you are, and it'll kill you by touch. And then we have another one of these core fighter enemy things. It's got a name, I think, but I can't remember what it is. You just shoot the core, and eventually you'll destroy it. The shots don't always seem to connect when you shoot it dead center on the core. But note that enemies get more and more aggressive. They shoot more often, they have more herky-jerky patterns, they might shoot faster, and this level is really where the difficulty starts to mess with you. Not quite yet, but right here, where the famed Konami Moai heads, the Easter Island heads, appear. And if you've played the NES version, note that numerous stages will scroll about the screen, and it doesn't do that in the NES, and this is one of those situations. You can destroy the Moai heads with enough shots. You really need to have your lasers and your missiles at the very least here. It is so hard. Once you crash, once you die, you will lose all your power-ups. And when you're in the middle of the Moai stage, good freaking luck. I was not able to make it through this stage. You just get surrounded by shots. You will get an extra life at 30,000 points, and every 80,000 points. But yeah, if you get to this stage and you run out of your power-ups, and you die, you're in deep crap. But yeah, it is kind of a shock. Whoops, well, I didn't really have much choice or much chance. It is a serious shock to players of the NES version to see all that scrolling about and to have to use a button for actual missiles. Now, what is cool is the letter selection screen for your name for the high score list. you get to put in not only your gender, but your zodiac sign and your name. And you get to pick from 2 genders, because that's the way reality is. And there I am at first place. That is Gradius, and we are going to look at pretty much where I picked up off for the rest of the game, and I will put on invincibility at that point, just so you can see what the rest of the game looks like. And it will start over from the ending. I mean, once you beat the game, all the levels will start over again. And we'll face the core fighter in just a little bit, but first we have to destroy or survive a number of these weird fighters here. I have the invincibility on here. I just dodge in for, I don't know, strategy reasons or something. There's that core fighter. In the NES port, yeah, let's see, I'll just go right through his shots. In the NES port, there's a trick. If you destroy him within like 2 seconds of his core turning blue, you can warp stages, and that's not in this game either. None of the bonuses, hidden bonuses, or hidden tricks are in the arcade version. But like I was saying, the original name is Gradius, but I think initially it was ported to the US as Nemesis. There was a Game Boy port called Nemesis, and it was different. I used to have an I liked that one. It was hard too, though. Yeah, this gets real hard real quick, starting stage 3. But the music is better in this original than the NES or Versus ones that we're used to. This was the absolute first in a long series of shoot-em-ups. There was Gradius 2, Gradius 3, Gradius 4. Yeah, flying through between that gap of that volcano would net you like 5,000 points in the NES version. None of those tricks are in the arcade original here. And like I said, this was not really seen very much in the US. But I do not remember ever coming across this version. But I definitely have to give it credit, because it is super awesome for 1985. The NES port came, I think, 1986, as did the Versus arcade version in the Nintendo cabinet. If you're playing this in MAME, the I don't remember if this sequence was in the NES one. I don't think so. It's been a while. I can't remember what I was gonna say. But yeah, the core fighter. It's weird, you shoot it right dead center and your shots don't always register. It's weird. Definitely want to get an option fighter and laser as soon as you can, and missiles, because there will be a lot of stages where you really need the missiles. And I like how the missiles crawl along the floor until they hit a target. Double is crappy. I do not ever use double. I don't like it. And note that the option fighters will shoot when you do. And I think you can have a total of 4 option fighters. Yeah. So you have each option fighter is a little red or orange orb that shoots when you do. We have these little. These always made me think of meatballs. Speaking of meatballs, I have meatballs in the freezer. I should make some meatball sandwiches. I got a whole bunch of provolone and some hoagie rolls. But I really should make some, or finish off my macaroni and cheese. got a whole bunch of elbow macaroni and Velveeta to use. A bunch of white cheddar too. It makes great macaroni and cheese. But at any rate, once you get past these meatballs, then was this the last boss coming up? Maybe. But you face some more meatballs with long tentacles or whatever. kinda out there concepts at times for this game, but all-time classic. Wonderful, wonderful game. This actually spawned an anime series, I guess. I think a very short-lived anime series. The first sequel to this was, for some reason I like to call it Gradius 2, but it was known as Life Force or Salamander. That was released in the US as, I think, Life Force, but it was not very wide. It wasn't a very wide release. That one I did see at an arcade once, somewhere in Washington State. And this part has destructible walls as well that you can shoot, and they will not regenerate. Oh, I was going to mention that if you use MAME and you put on the invincibility code for this game, you'll still hear crash music sometimes when you run into walls, and that will cancel out some of the soundtrack. Yeah, this mostly plays like the versions that we're used to seeing, but it's a little bit harder. And that is basically the end of the game, I think. Oh, no, this was the last stage. This is the last stage, and then after this, all the stages repeat from the beginning, and the difficulties increased. Now we have the full amount of options, and I have the full amount of speed. Yeah, you can upgrade your speed multiple times, and you can upgrade your option to 4 times to have four option fighters. Yeah, even though I'm generally used to the NES or Versus versions of Gradius, I still really like this one a lot. That part with the Moai heads, the Moai statues, which appear as cameo characters in a number of other Konami games, that's just too hard for me. And there I put on the double shots, even though I don't really care for them. And once again, the soundtrack cuts out because I made the crash noise. So even if you have the invincibility cheat on and you crash, you'll still have it'll still sound weird. Yeah, these hatches that a number of enemies come out of, they take a lot of shots to destroy. And there's a trick in the hatches for the NES version to, I think, get you a special bonus or something, I can't remember. It's been a while since I played the NES version, but there's some tricks to that one. I should do a re-upload of my NES tips and tricks videos one of these days. Now we're almost to the boss, and you'll need to, if you don't have invincibility on, you'll need to zip through that little space there before the walls close on you, or keep you from getting through, and the screen scrolls and you'll crash. Then you have to shoot the supports to that brain thing, and you'll get this kind of low-res ending here. For 1985, that was pretty darn incredible. That was Gradius, and now we start all over, and you lose all your weapon ups. But you get a start with a speed up. You just have to press the button to activate it. And again, there are 3 buttons: power up, fire, and missile. You have a separate button for missiles, which kind of sucks. But that was Gradius, game number 2 in our 20 from 1985 series, also known as Nemesis by Konami. And this is Crazy Climber 80 saying thanks for watching game number 2, Gradius. See you soon with game number 1 in our 20 from 1985 series. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.